Ambassador Vorith-san stood at the observation window of Station Theta 7 and looked at the pale blue dot in the distance. Earth. The humans called it home. 8 billion of them lived on that small world, unaware that they were being watched. Voreth was a Kalari, a species known for their patience and wisdom. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes were large and dark like pools of ink. He had served the Galactic Concordat for 300 years, and in all that time, he had never seen a species quite like humans. They were strange creatures, violent and peaceful, stupid and brilliant. They fought wars over land and ideas, yet they also created beautiful art and music. They destroyed their own planet with pollution, yet they dreamed of reaching the stars. The Concordat had been watching Earth for 200 years. It was standard procedure. When a primitive species showed signs of developing technology, the Concordat placed them under observation. They called it quarantine. The official reason was to protect the young species from the dangers of the galaxy. The real reason was something else entirely. Vorith did not like to think about the real reason. "Ambassador San," said a voice behind him. "The daily report is ready." Vorith turned to face his assistant, a young Kalari named Tessa. She held a datapad in her hands, and her expression was calm and professional. "Thank you, Tessa," Vorith said. "Anything unusual?" "No, sir. The humans continue as normal. Their radio signals show no significant changes. Their satellite network is stable. Their space program remains limited to their own solar system." Vorith nodded. This was always the report. The humans were predictable. They advanced slowly, distracted by their endless conflicts and their strange obsession with entertainment. The Concordat estimated that they would not be ready for contact for another 200 years. By then, they would be properly prepared, properly controlled. Voreth pushed the thought away. He did not like to think about what properly prepared meant. "Very good," he said. "I will review the report in my quarters. You may continue with your duties." Tessa bowed her head and left the observation deck. Vorith remained at the window, watching the distant Earth. He wondered what the humans were doing right now. Were they sleeping? Eating? Fighting? Loving? Did they ever look up at the stars and wonder if someone was looking back? Of course they did. Humans were dreamers. It was perhaps the thing Vorith liked most about them. He stayed at the window for a long time, lost in thought. Then he went to his quarters to sleep. 6 hours later, everything changed. The alarm woke Vorith from a deep sleep. He sat up in his bed, his heart's pounding. The alarm was loud and harsh, and it meant only one thing. Something was very wrong. He dressed quickly and ran to the command center. The room was filled with chaos. Officers shouted at each other. Screens flashed with warning lights. The station commander, a Xelthari named Korax, stood in the center of it all, his scales dark with anger. "What is happening?" Vorith demanded. Korax turned to face him. The Xelthari was tall and muscular, with sharp teeth and cold eyes. His species was known for their aggression. They had joined the Concordat centuries ago, but they had never lost their warrior instincts. "The humans," Korax said. "They are gone." Vorith did not understand. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "I mean exactly what I said, Ambassador. They are gone. All of them. Every single human on Earth has vanished." Vorith felt his blood turn cold. "That is impossible. There are 8 billion of them. They cannot simply vanish." "Look for yourself," Korax said. He pointed at the main screen. Vorith looked. The screen showed Earth, the same pale blue dot he had been watching for years. But something was different. The planet was silent. No radio signals. No television broadcasts. No satellite communications. Nothing. "We detected the anomaly 6 hours ago," Korax explained. "At first we thought it was a technical error. We checked our equipment. Everything was working perfectly. So we sent a probe to investigate, and..." Korax pressed a button on his console. The screen changed, showing images captured by the probe. Vorith leaned forward, his eyes wide. The images showed cities. Empty cities. Streets filled with abandoned vehicles. Doors left open. Lights still burning. Food left on tables. Half-eaten. But no people. Not a single human anywhere. "We scanned the entire planet," Korax said. "Every continent. Every city. Every village. There is no one there. The humans have vanished." Vorith could not believe what he was seeing. There must be bodies, some sign of what happened. A plague, perhaps. Or a weapon. There are no bodies, Korek said. No blood. No signs of violence. No indication of disease. The humans simply disappeared. One moment they were there, and the next moment they were not. Vorith looked at the images again. He saw a child's toy lying in a playground, a dog wandering down an empty street, a cat sitting on a windowsill, looking out at nothing. The animals were still there. The plants were still there. Only the humans were gone. This is not possible, Vorith whispered. And yet, it has happened, Korek said. His voice was hard. The question is what we do now. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Within hours, every species in the Concordat knew what had happened on Earth. Theories spread even faster than the news. Some said it was a plague, a disease so deadly that it killed every human instantly and left no trace. Others said it was a weapon. Perhaps the humans had finally destroyed themselves, as so many species had predicted they would. But the most frightening theory was this. Something had taken them. Something powerful enough to remove 8 billion people from a planet in a single night. Something that left no evidence, no witnesses, no survivors. The Galactic Concordat called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major species gathered on Seraphis, the capital world. The great chamber was filled with voices, all speaking at once, all demanding answers. Ambassador Vorithson sat in his chair and listened. He felt tired and old. He had spent so many years watching the humans, studying them, trying to understand them. Now they were gone, and he felt like a piece of himself had been taken with them. The Xelthari representative stood up. His name was General Zarn, and he was one of the most powerful military leaders in the Concordat. His voice silenced the chamber. We all know what this means, Zarn said. The humans were dangerous. We knew this from the beginning. They were aggressive, unpredictable, and they bred like insects. We should have dealt with them centuries ago. Dealt with them, another voice said. It was the representative from the Vorn Collective, a hive mind species that existed as a single consciousness spread across millions of bodies. You mean exterminated them? Call it what you will, Zarn said. The point is that we failed to act, and now something has happened, something beyond our understanding. We must prepare for the worst. The worst? Said the Kalari representative, an elderly woman named Sola. What exactly do you imagine the worst to be, General? Whatever took the humans may come for us next, Zarn said. We must mobilize our fleets. We must prepare for war. The chamber erupted in noise. Some agreed with Zarn. Others called him a fool. Vorith sat silently, watching and listening. He did not believe that something had taken the humans. He did not believe that they had destroyed themselves either. He believed something else entirely. Something that he could not prove. Something that frightened him more than any of the other theories. He believed that the humans had chosen to disappear. The emergency session lasted for 3 days. In the end, the Concordat agreed on a plan. They would send a science fleet to Earth, 200 vessels, equipped with the most advanced sensors and scanners in the galaxy. They would study the planet. They would search for clues. They would find out what had happened to the humans. Vorith volunteered to join the expedition. He told the council that his years of experience studying humans made him valuable. This was true, but it was not the real reason he wanted to go. He wanted to see Earth for himself. He wanted to walk on the surface of the planet he had watched for so long. He wanted to understand. The fleet departed from Seraphis and traveled through hyperspace for 2 days. When they emerged, Earth filled the view screens. It looked the same as it always had. Blue oceans, green and brown continents, white clouds drifting across the atmosphere. But Vorith knew that it was not the same. The planet was empty now. A ghost world. The fleet entered orbit and began scanning the surface. The readings confirmed what the probe had shown. No human life signs anywhere on the planet. The animals were still there, confused and lost without their masters. The plants were still growing. The machines were still running, powered by systems that did not require human control. But the humans themselves were gone. Vorith requested permission to lead a landing party. The fleet commander, a cautious Kelari named Admiral Thorn, granted the request reluctantly. Vorith took a shuttle down to the surface, along with a team of scientists and security officers. They landed in a city called New York. Vorith had studied this place many times. It was one of the largest human settlements, home to millions of people. Now, it was silent. Vorith stepped out of the shuttle and looked around. The buildings rose high above him, reaching toward the sky like metal trees. The streets were wide and empty. Vehicles sat motionless, their doors open, their engines cold. "Spread out," Vorith said to his team. "Look for any clues, any sign of what happened." The team moved through the city like ghosts. They entered buildings and found meals left on tables. They found clothes laid out on beds, as if their owners had been preparing to dress. They found computers still running, screens displaying messages that would never be read. One of the scientists found something strange. He called Vorith over to look. "What is it?" Vorith asked. The scientist pointed at a wall. Someone had written something there, in red paint. The words were in the human language called English. Vorith knew enough to read them. "We were always watching too." Vorith felt a chill run down his spine. He stared at the words for a long time. Then he ordered his team to continue the search. They found more messages as they explored. Some were written on walls. Others were carved into wood or scratched into metal. All of them said the same thing. "We knew. We saw you. We were ready." Vorith did not understand. What did the humans know? What had they seen? Ready for what? He reported his findings to Admiral Thorne. The Admiral was disturbed but not surprised. Similar messages had been found all over the planet, in every city, in every village, in every language. The humans had known they were being watched. They had known about the Concordat. They had known about the quarantine. And they had prepared. But prepared for what? Where had they gone? How had 8 billion people vanished without a trace? The answers would come soon. But Vorith was not ready for them. No one in the galaxy was ready for them. On the third day of the investigation, something happened that changed everything. Vorith was in the shuttle, reviewing the data his team had collected. He was tired. He had not slept properly since arriving on Earth. The mystery consumed him. He could not stop thinking about those messages on the walls. He could not stop wondering what the humans had been planning. Then the shuttle shook. Vorith grabbed the console to steady himself. What was that? The pilot checked his instruments. His face went pale. "Ambassador, you need to see this." Vorith moved to the front of the shuttle and looked out the window. At first, he did not understand what he was seeing. The ocean in the distance was moving strangely. It was rising, bubbling, as if something massive was pushing up from below. "Get us in the air," Vorith said. Now, the shuttle lifted off just as the ocean exploded. Water shot into the sky, and something rose from beneath the waves. Something huge, something impossible. It was a ship, a vessel unlike anything Vorith had ever seen. Its hull was black, so dark that it seemed to absorb the light around it. It was at least 2 kilometers long, and it moved with perfect grace, rising into the sky without a sound. And it was not alone. More ships rose from the ocean. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. The water churned and boiled as vessel after vessel emerged from the depths. They rose into the air and formed a pattern, moving with synchronized precision. Vorith's communicator screamed with voices. Reports came in from all over the planet. Ships were rising everywhere. From the oceans, from the mountains, from the ice caps, from underground caverns that no scanner had ever detected. Thousands of ships. Tens of thousands. More and more every second. Vorith watched in stunned silence as the sky filled with darkness. The ships rose until they blocked out the sun, casting the city below into shadow. They were everywhere. They were endless. The final count came from the fleet in orbit. Admiral Thorne's voice was shaking when he delivered it. 500,000 vessels. They have completely surrounded the planet. We are trapped. Vorith closed his eyes. Now he understood. Now he knew what the humans had been planning. They had not vanished. They had not been taken. They had hidden themselves. And they had built an armada in secret, right under the noses of the Concordat. For 200 years, the galaxy had watched humanity and seen only primitives. They had seen wars and pollution and chaos. They had seen a species that could barely reach its own moon. But that was not the truth. The truth was something far more terrifying. The humans had been watching back. And while the galaxy laughed at their weakness, they had been building their strength. Now they were ready. The ships hung in the sky like silent judges, waiting. Vorith did not know what they wanted. He did not know if they came in peace or war. He did not know if he would survive the next hour. But he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the end of everything he had known. The view screen showed Earth, but the planet was barely visible now. 500,000 ships surrounded it, forming a perfect sphere of black metal. The human fleet was so vast that it blocked the stars themselves. Thorn was old. He had served the Concordat for 400 years. He had fought in 3 wars and survived dozens of battles. He had seen things that would break lesser minds, but he had never seen anything like this. "All weapons are armed, Admiral," his tactical officer reported. "We are ready to fire on your command." Thorn did not respond. He kept staring at the screen. The human ships were not moving. They hung in space like statues, silent and still. They had made no attempt to communicate. They had not attacked. They simply waited. "Admiral," the tactical officer said. "Your orders?" Thorn shook his head. "Hold your fire. We need to understand what we are dealing with. Sir, with respect, we are dealing with an enemy fleet. They outnumber us more than 2,000 to 1. We must strike first, while we still have the chance." "And accomplish what?" Thorn asked. "Look at them, Commander. Look at the size of that fleet. If we attack, they will destroy us in seconds. And then what? We will have started a war that we cannot win." The tactical officer opened his mouth to argue, but another voice interrupted him. "The Admiral is correct." Everyone on the bridge turned. Ambassador Vorithson stood at the entrance, his robes dusty from his time on the surface. His face was pale, and his eyes were tired, but his voice was calm. "We cannot fight this," Vorith said. "We should not even try. The humans have been preparing for this moment for 200 years. They know exactly what they are doing." "And what are they doing?" the tactical officer demanded. Vorith walked slowly to the view screen. He looked at the endless wall of ships. "They are making a statement. They want us to see their power. They want us to understand that everything we believed about them was wrong. So they are showing off?" the tactical officer said. "Is this all just a display?" "No," Vorith said. "It is a warning." Before anyone could respond, the communication console lit up. The officer at the station looked confused. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from the human fleet." The bridge went silent. Thorn felt his heart's beating faster. "Put it through." The view screen flickered. The image of the human fleet was replaced by something else. A face. A human face. It was a woman. She looked young by human standards, perhaps in her 5th decade. Her hair was dark and short. Her skin was brown. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She wore a uniform of some kind, black with silver trim. "This is Commander Elena Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the woman said. "I am speaking to all Concordat vessels in Earth orbit. Please do not be alarmed. We mean you no harm." Thorn leaned forward. "This is Admiral Thorn of the Galactic Concordat. Explain yourself. Where did this fleet come from? Where are your people?" The woman smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "Our people are safe, Admiral. They have always been safe. They are aboard these ships and in facilities throughout our solar system. We evacuated Earth 3 days ago." "Evacuated?" Thorn said. "You evacuated 8 billion people in 3 days? That is impossible." "Many things seem impossible until they are done," Elena Chen said. "We have been preparing for this moment for a very long time. 212 years. To be precise." Thorn felt cold. "You knew. You knew we were watching you." "Of course we knew. Your observation stations were not as hidden as you believed. We detected your surveillance equipment in the year 2135. We intercepted your communications in 2147. By 2150, we knew everything about the Galactic Concordat, your species, your politics, your plans for us." The bridge was completely silent. Every officer stared at the screen, unable to believe what they were hearing. "That is when we made our decision," Elena continued. "We could have announced ourselves. We could have demanded to be treated as equals. But we studied your history, Admiral. We learned what happens to primitive species that try to join the Concordat before they are ready. We learned about the cultural reformation programs. We learned about the Zelthari extermination campaigns." Her voice grew harder. "We learned that you plan to strip away our identity and make us obedient servants of your empire. And we decided that this would never happen." Thorn found his voice. "So you hid. You built this fleet in secret." "We did more than hide, Admiral. We evolved. For 200 years, we let you see only what we wanted you to see. We kept broadcasting our radio signals and our television shows. We kept flying our primitive rockets and fighting our small wars. We gave you a performance of weakness. She leaned closer to the camera. Meanwhile, beneath your notice, we transformed ourselves. We developed technologies that your scientists said were impossible. We built ships in underwater facilities, in underground cities, in bases buried beneath glaciers. We prepared for the day when we would need to face you. And that day is today, Thorne said. Yes, Admiral. That day is today. The transmission ended. The screen returned to the image of the human fleet, that endless sphere of black ships surrounding their world. Thorne stood frozen for a long moment. Then he turned to his communications officer. Send a message to the Concordat High Council. Priority 1. Tell them everything. The message reached Seraphis within hours. The response was immediate and chaotic. The Zelthari Dominion demanded military action. General Zarn stood before the High Council and screamed about the threat that humanity posed. He called them vermin and insects. He said that they must be destroyed before they grew stronger. The Kilari Federation urged caution. Representative Sola reminded the Council that humanity had not attacked. They had disabled no weapons and destroyed no ships. Their actions, while shocking, were purely defensive. The Vorn Collective said nothing for a long time. When they finally spoke, their words surprised everyone. We find the humans admirable, the Collective said, speaking through one of their many bodies. They faced a powerful enemy and found a way to survive. They did not beg or surrender. They prepared and they planned and they emerged stronger. This is worthy of respect. General Zarn turned red with anger. Respect? You want us to respect these creatures? They lied to us for centuries. They defended themselves. The Collective replied. As any species would. As the Xelthari would. If they were in the same position. The argument continued for hours. No agreement was reached. The Council was divided. And the galaxy was afraid. Meanwhile, something else was happening. Something that would change the course of history. In orbit around Earth, the Concordat fleet waited. Admiral Thorne had ordered his ships to hold position. They were not to attack unless attacked first. They were not to retreat unless ordered. They were simply to watch and wait. But the Zelthari had never been good at waiting. Fleet Commander Tyraxis was a young Zelthari officer, ambitious and aggressive. He commanded a squadron of 50 warships, the most advanced vessels in the Concordat fleet. He had received his orders from Admiral Thorne. He had no intention of following them. This is ridiculous, Tyraxis said to his officers. We sit here like frightened children, while these humans surround us. They are bluffing. They must be. No primitive species could build a fleet this size in secret. Commander, the Admiral ordered us to hold position, one of his officers said. The Admiral is a Kalari, Tyraxis spat. A coward. He would negotiate with a knife at his throat. We are Xelthari. We do not wait. We act. He turned to his weapons officer. Target the nearest human vessel. Prepare to fire. Commander, this is against our orders. I am giving you new orders. Fire. The weapons officer hesitated for only a moment. Then he pressed the button. A beam of energy shot from the Xelthari warship. It crossed the void between the fleets in less than a second. It struck the nearest human vessel directly on its hull, and nothing happened. The beam passed through the human ship like light through glass. It did not burn the hull. It did not damage any systems. It simply went through and continued into empty space. Tyraxis stared at the screen. What? That is impossible. Fire again. All weapons. His squadron opened fire. 50 ships unleashed everything they had. Energy beams and plasma bolts and missiles and projectiles. A storm of destruction aimed at the human fleet. Every single shot passed through the human ships without effect. And then the humans responded. Tyraxis never saw what hit him. One moment his ship was firing. The next moment, every system on board went dark. Engines died. Weapons shut down. Life support flickered and failed. Even the emergency lighting went out, leaving the crew in complete darkness. The same thing happened to every ship in his squadron. Every Xelthari vessel went dead in an instant. They drifted helplessly in the void, unable to move or communicate or defend themselves. But they were not destroyed. Their crews were not killed. They were simply disabled, rendered completely powerless. Admiral Thorne watched in horror as the Xelthari squadron went dark. He had warned them. He had ordered them to hold. But the Zelthari never listened. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "we are receiving another transmission from the human fleet. Put it through." Commander Elena Chen appeared on the screen again. Her expression had not changed. She looked calm and controlled, as if she had expected exactly this. "Admiral Thorne, I warned you that we meant no harm. I did not say that we would accept attack. Your ships fired on us. We have responded by disabling them. Their crews are unharmed, but they will remain powerless until we choose otherwise." Thorne bowed his head. "Commander Chen, I apologize for the actions of Fleet Commander Tyraxis. He acted against my orders. I am aware of that, Admiral. Your species has better control over its warriors than the Xelthari do. This is one reason we are willing to speak with you." "What do you want?" Thorne asked. "Why have you done all this?" Elena Chen was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "We want what every species wants, Admiral. We want to survive. We want to be free. We want to live our lives without the threat of extinction hanging over us. The Concordat does not exterminate species," Thorne said. "No. You merely erase their cultures and control their development. You turn them into obedient members of your collective. Species that resist are left to the Xelthari, who have destroyed 17 races in the past 1,000 years. Thorne could not deny this. It was true. He had seen it happen. He had participated in it. "We do not want to be your enemies," Elena continued. "We do not want war, but we will never allow ourselves to be controlled. We will never accept your cultural reformation. We will never bow to your empire." "Then what do you propose?" Elena smiled again. This time, the smile seemed genuine. "We propose a meeting, Admiral. A formal introduction between humanity and the Galactic Concordat. We will send an ambassador to Seraphis. She will explain our terms. We ask only that she be given safe passage and treated with respect." Thorne considered this. He had no authority to accept such a proposal, but he knew that the High Council would have no choice but to agree. The alternative was war with a fleet that could disable entire squadrons without effort. "I will relay your proposal to the High Council," he said. "I cannot promise anything." "We understand, Admiral. We have waited 200 years. We can wait a little longer." The transmission ended. Thorne slumped in his chair. He felt exhausted and old. Everything he had believed about the galaxy had been proven wrong. The universe he had known was gone. Around him, his officers worked in silence. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to think. In the distance, the human fleet waited. 500,000 ships, patient and still. They had revealed themselves to the galaxy. They had demonstrated their power. Now they waited for the galaxy to respond. Thorne looked at the view screen one last time. He thought about what Elena Chen had said. They had been watching. They had been preparing. For 200 years, they had hidden in plain sight. And now they were here. He wondered what other secrets they were hiding. He wondered what other surprises they had prepared. He wondered if the galaxy was ready for what was coming. He suspected that it was not, but ready or not, the humans were here, and nothing would ever be the same again. The great chamber of the Galactic Concordat had never been so full. Representatives from every species in the known galaxy had come to Seraphis. They filled the seats that rose in circles around the central platform. They crowded the observation galleries. They watched from screens on 1,000 different worlds. Everyone wanted to see the humans. Ambassador Vorith San sat in his assigned seat among the Kelari delegation. He had not slept in 3 days. He had traveled directly from Earth to Seraphis, carrying his reports and his observations. The High Council had listened to everything he had to say. They had asked questions. They had debated, and now they waited. The chamber was filled with noise. Hundreds of different species spoke in hundreds of different languages. The translation system struggled to keep up. Arguments broke out between delegations. Old enemies glared at each other across the hall. Old friends whispered nervously about what was coming. General Zarn of the Xelthari stood at the front of his delegation. His scales were dark with rage, and his hands kept moving toward his weapons. He had been arguing for immediate military action since the moment the human fleet revealed itself. He had demanded that the Concordat mobilize every ship in the galaxy, but the Council had refused. They had seen what happened to Fleet Commander Tyraxis and his squadron. They had watched 50 warships go dark in an instant. They knew that attacking the humans would be suicide. So instead, they waited. And they watched. The doors at the far end of the chamber opened. The noise died instantly. Every eye in the hall turned toward the entrance. A single figure walked into the chamber. She was small by the standards of most species in the Concordat. Her skin was brown, her hair was dark and short, and her eyes were calm and steady. She wore a simple uniform, black with silver trim, no armor, no weapons, no guards. She walked alone. Vorith felt his breath catch in his throat. He had watched humans for 200 years. He had studied their behavior and their culture. He had seen images of billions of them, but he had never stood in the same room as one. She was different in person. There was something about the way she moved. Confident but not arrogant. Alert but not afraid. She walked through a hall filled with species that could kill her with a single blow, and she showed no fear at all. Her name was Elena Chen. Vorith had seen her transmission from the fleet. She had identified herself as a commander then. Now, it seemed, she was an ambassador. Elena walked to the center of the chamber and stopped on the speaking platform. She looked around at the assembled representatives. Her gaze moved slowly across the hall, taking in every species, every face. When her eyes passed over Vorith, he felt a strange sensation. It was as if she was looking not at him, but into him. "Thank you for receiving me," she said. Her voice was quiet, but the chamber's systems amplified it perfectly. "I know that my presence here is unexpected. I know that many of you are afraid. I know that some of you are angry." Her gaze moved to General Zarn. The Zelthari general stared back at her with undisguised hatred. "I am here to explain," Elena continued. "Not to threaten, not to demand. Simply to explain." She paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Then she began. 212 years ago, a scientist on Earth detected an unusual signal from space. It was not natural. It was clearly artificial. She traced its source to a satellite in orbit around our 8th planet, what we call Neptune. A satellite that we had not placed there. The chamber was completely silent. Every being listened intently. We investigated quietly. We discovered that our solar system was filled with observation devices, hidden in asteroids, buried in comets, orbiting our planets. You were watching us, every moment of every day. You were watching. She let that statement hang in the air. At first, we were excited. We had always wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we had proof that we were not. We dreamed of meeting you, of learning from you, of joining your great civilization among the stars. Her voice grew harder. Then we intercepted your communications. We decoded your languages. We learned the truth about the Galactic Concordat. Elena turned slowly, addressing every section of the chamber. We learned that you do not welcome new species. You control them. You observe them until they reach a certain level of development. Then you approach them and offer them membership in your Concordat. And if they accept, you begin the process of cultural reformation. The word hung in the air like poison. Cultural reformation, Elena repeated. Such a gentle phrase for such a terrible thing. You study a species until you understand their weaknesses, their fears, their divisions. Then you use that knowledge to reshape them. You eliminate the aspects of their culture that you find troublesome. You encourage the aspects that make them easier to control. Within a few generations, the original species is gone. In its place is something new, something obedient, something safe. General Zarn stood up. "You dare accuse us of—" "Sit down, General," Elena said. Her voice was calm, but something in her tone made the Zelthari hesitate. "I have not finished speaking." Zarn remained standing for a moment. Then, slowly, he sat. "We learned about the cultural reformation programs," Elena continued. "We learned about the species that refused to participate. The Tyranni, the Vexar, the Olorim, 17 species in total, all of them destroyed by the Xelthari Dominion." She looked directly at Zarn. "You called them aggressive. You said they were a threat to galactic peace. But the truth is simpler. They refused to be controlled. They refused to give up their identity. So you killed them all. Every last one." Zarn's scales had turned dark. His hands gripped the arms of his chair, but he did not speak. "When we learned all of this," Elena said, "we had a choice to make. We could announce ourselves and hope for the best. We could trust that you would treat us differently. We could believe that you would respect our culture and our freedom." She shook her head. "We chose not to take that risk. We chose to prepare. Elena touched a control on her wrist. The center of the chamber lit up with a holographic display. It showed Earth, the blue planet that Vorith had watched for so many years. For 200 years, we gave you exactly what you expected to see. We continued broadcasting our radio and television signals. We continued our space programs, carefully limited to our own solar system. We continued fighting our small wars and our political conflicts. We gave you a show. The display changed. It showed the surface of the Earth, then descended beneath it. Underground cities appeared. Vast caverns filled with buildings and lights. Factories, training centers, shipyards. Meanwhile, we built our real civilization underground. We excavated spaces beneath every continent. We constructed cities that could house millions. We developed technologies in secret, away from your watching eyes. The display showed the oceans. Again, it descended beneath the surface. More cities appeared, enclosed in massive domes. More shipyards, more factories. We did the same beneath our seas, and in the ice caps of our polar regions, and in the asteroid belt of our solar system. Everywhere your satellites could not see, we were working, building, preparing. The display showed the fleet, 500,000 ships, arranged in their sphere around Earth. In 200 years, we transformed ourselves from a primitive species into a power that could challenge the Concordat itself. We did this while you watched us and laughed at our weakness. We did this right under your noses. She paused. The display faded. I tell you this not to boast. I tell you this so that you understand. We are not the primitives you believed us to be. We are not children who need your guidance. We are a species that sees threats clearly and responds to them effectively. Elena's voice softened slightly. But we are not your enemies. We have no desire for conquest. We have no interest in war. We simply want what every species wants. The right to exist. The right to be free. The right to determine our own future. She looked around the chamber one more time. We are requesting membership in the Galactic Concordat. Full membership as equals. Not as a species to be reformed or controlled. Not as servants or subordinates. As partners. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted questions and objections. General Zarn was on his feet again, screaming about threats and treachery. Others called for calm. Others simply stared in shock. Elena stood patiently in the center of it all, waiting for the noise to die down. Eventually, it did. The council speaker, an ancient Kalari named Telos, raised his hand for silence. Ambassador Chen, Telos said, what you are asking is unprecedented. No species has ever been granted full membership without first completing the integration process. Then perhaps it is time for a precedent to be set, Elena replied. And if we refuse? Elena's expression did not change. Then we will leave. We will take our fleet and our people, and we will find another part of the galaxy to call home, a part where we will not be threatened or controlled. You would abandon your homeworld? Earth is not our only home anymore, Council Speaker. It has not been for 2 centuries. We love our planet, but we have learned to live without it. We will not be held hostage by sentiment. Telos was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke again. And if we attempt to stop you by force? Elena smiled. It was a small, sad smile. Council Speaker, you saw what happened to the Zelthari squadron at Earth. 50 ships, the most advanced in your fleet, disabled in seconds. We did not destroy them. We did not kill their crews. We simply rendered them helpless. She paused. That was a demonstration of our defensive capabilities. I would prefer not to demonstrate our offensive capabilities. But if you force us to, we will. And I promise you, the result will not be in your favor. The chamber was silent again. Vorith looked around at the faces of the assembled representatives. He saw fear, confusion, anger, but also, in some faces, something else. Respect. The Vorn collective spoke. Their voice came from multiple bodies scattered around the chamber, speaking in perfect unison. We support the human request. They have proven themselves capable and determined. They have shown restraint when attacked. They would be valuable members of the Concordat. General Zarn turned toward the collective representatives. You support them? These creatures who lied to us for centuries? They defended themselves, the collective replied. Against a threat that was very real. Against species that have destroyed 17 others. They did what any intelligent species would do. They survived. The argument continued. It went on for hours. Delegations debated and shouted and threatened. Old alliances were tested, new ones were formed, but in the end, there was really only one choice. The humans had made that clear. They could be allies, or they could be gone. But they would never be servants. As the session drew to a close, Vorith made his way down to the speaking platform. He approached Ambassador Chen carefully, unsure of how she would react. "Ambassador," he said, "may I speak with you?" Elena turned to face him. Her eyes studied him for a moment. Then she nodded. "You are Vorith-san," she said. "You were the senior observer at Station Theta 7. You have been watching humanity for over a century." Vorith was surprised. "You know who I am?" "We know a great deal, Ambassador-san. We have been watching you as carefully as you watched us." Vorith felt a chill run through him. "I see. You have a question for me." "I do," Vorith said. "Many questions, actually. But one in particular." "Ask it." Vorith hesitated. Then he spoke. "Your fleet at Earth. 500,000 ships. Is that the full extent of your forces? Or is there more that you are not showing us?" Elena smiled again. This time, the smile was warmer, almost friendly. "Ambassador-san, you watched us for 200 years. You studied our culture. You analyzed our behavior. Tell me, what did you learn about humans?" Vorith thought about this. "Many things. But one pattern that stood out was your tendency to understate your capabilities, to hold back until the critical moment. And what does that suggest to you?" Vorith looked into her eyes. He saw the answer there. He saw the truth that she would never speak aloud. "The 500,000 ships are not your entire fleet," he said quietly. "They are merely what you chose to reveal." Elena did not confirm or deny. She simply maintained her smile. "Humanity would like to be friends with the Concordat, Ambassador-san. We would like to be allies, but we will never make the mistake of showing all our strength to potential enemies." She turned and walked toward the chamber exit. At the door, she paused and looked back. "I hope we can be friends, Ambassador. I truly do. The galaxy is a large and dangerous place. We all need allies we can trust." Then she was gone. Vorith stood alone on the speaking platform. Around him, the representatives continued to argue. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance. But Vorith was not thinking about that. He was thinking about what Elena had said, about what she had not said, about the secrets that humanity was still keeping. He wondered how many more ships they had hidden, how many more weapons they had developed, how many more surprises they were holding in reserve. He wondered if anyone would ever truly know the full extent of human power. And he wondered, not for the first time, whether it might be better not to find out. The Xelthari Empire did not accept defeat easily. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had destroyed 17 species. They had built the largest military force in galactic history. They did not bow to anyone, least of all a species they had once dismissed as primitive. Emperor Korthax sat on his throne and listened to the reports from Seraphis. The Concordat was considering the human proposal. They were actually thinking about accepting these creatures as equals. It was an insult that he could not tolerate. "Mobilize the fleet," he commanded. "All of it." His generals stared at him in shock. "All of it, my emperor? That would leave our worlds undefended." "Our worlds do not need defense. We are the Xelthari. No one attacks us. We attack them." He leaned forward on his throne. "Gather every ship we have. I want 12 million vessels at the Kethoran system within 30 days. And the humans, my emperor? We will show them what happens to species that challenge us. We will burn their fleet to ash. We will reduce their hidden cities to rubble. And when we are done, there will be nothing left of humanity but a warning to others." The generals bowed and left to carry out his orders. Emperor Korthax sat alone in his throne room, dreaming of the glory that awaited him. He did not know that his every word had been heard. He did not know that his plans had already been reported to Earth. He did not know that the humans were not afraid. They were waiting. The Xelthari fleet gathered at Kethoran, a dead system at the border between Concordat space and the Xelthari Empire. 12 million ships. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. The fleet filled the space around the system's cold, dead star. It stretched for millions of kilometers in every direction. General Zarn stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Fury of Xelthar. He had been given command of this great armada. He would be the one to destroy humanity. His name would be remembered forever. General, his communications officer reported. The scouts have detected human vessels entering the system. Zarn turned to the view screen. In the distance, points of light appeared. Human ships, emerging from hyperspace. They formed up in a defensive formation and waited. Zarn counted them. 50,000 ships. Against his 12 million. He laughed. Is this the best they can do? He said. 50,000 ships against our 12 million? They are even more foolish than I thought. Perhaps they seek to negotiate, General. One of his officers suggested. Negotiate? Zarn spat. With what? They have nothing to negotiate with. This is desperation. This is a pathetic attempt to delay the inevitable. He turned to his tactical officer. Order the fleet to advance. Full speed. All weapons ready. We will crush them in a single strike. 12 million Zelthari ships began to move. They formed into attack formations, each squadron and division falling into its assigned position. They advanced toward the human fleet like a wall of metal and fire. On the human flagship, Ambassador Elena Chen watched the approaching enemy. She sat in a command chair on the bridge, surrounded by officers and crew. Admiral Marcus Stone stood beside her, his weathered face calm and steady. They are coming, Stone said. All 12 million of them. I can see that, Admiral. Our fleet is outnumbered 240 to 1. I can count, Admiral. Stone smiled slightly. Just making sure you understand the situation, Ambassador. I understand it perfectly. Elena looked at the view screen. The Zelthari fleet was vast, endless, a tide of ships that filled the stars. Is everything ready? It is. Then let them come. The two fleets closed the distance between them. The Zelthari moved at full speed, eager for battle. The humans held their position, waiting. The gap between them shrank from millions of kilometers to thousands, from thousands to hundreds. Then the Zelthari opened fire. 12 million ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams, plasma bolts, missiles, railgun projectiles. The barrage was so intense that it lit up the void like a second sun. It was the most devastating attack in galactic history. It should have destroyed the human fleet 100 times over. It did nothing. Every beam passed through the human ships. Every missile detonated against empty space. Every projectile flew through hulls that had become intangible. The human fleet hung in the void, untouched, undamaged, as if the attack had never happened. General Zarn stared at the view screen. His scales had gone pale. What is this? What is happening? General, our weapons are having no effect. The human ships seem to be shifting in and out of phase with normal space. Our attacks cannot touch them. Zarn grabbed the railing in front of him. That is impossible. No technology can do that. General, they are doing it. Before Zarn could respond, the humans attacked. The human ships moved forward with incredible speed. They closed the distance to the Zelthari fleet in seconds, passing through the barrage of weapons fire as if it were nothing. They reached the first line of Zelthari vessels and began their work. They did not fire weapons. They did not need to. Instead, they released swarms of tiny devices, each no larger than a human hand. These devices flew toward the Zelthari ships and attached themselves to their hulls. They burrowed through armor and metal. They reached the control systems inside. And then, one by one, the Zelthari ships went dark. Zarn watched in horror as his fleet died around him. Engines shut down. Weapons went offline. Communications failed. Lights flickered and faded. Ship after ship fell silent, drifting helplessly in the void. What are they doing to us? He screamed. General, the human devices are taking control of our systems. They are shutting everything down. Engines, weapons, life support, everything. Life support. They are killing our crews. No, General. They are leaving life support on minimal power. Enough to keep the crews alive. They are not killing anyone. They are just stopping us. Zarn turned to the view screen. The human fleet moved through his armada like predators through a herd. They touched ship after ship, squadron after squadron. Each vessel they passed went dark and drifted away. 12 million ships, the greatest fleet in galactic history, and the humans were disabling them all without firing a single shot. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, every Zelthari vessel was powerless. 12 million ships drifted in the void, their engines dead, their weapons cold. Their crews trapped inside with nothing but emergency lighting and basic air recycling. Not a single Zelthari had been killed. Not a single human ship had been destroyed. The human fleet regrouped in the center of the battlefield. They hung there silently, surrounded by the corpses of the Zelthari armada. Then a transmission went out. Every surviving Zelthari heard it. Every Concordat observer heard it. Every world in the galaxy heard it. Ambassador Elena Chen's face appeared on every screen. To the Zelthari Empire and to all who watch, she said, let this serve as a demonstration. 12 million of your finest vessels came to destroy us. We have disabled every one of them without taking a single life. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. We could have killed you all. Every ship, every soldier, every life in this fleet. It would have been easy. Your weapons could not touch us. Your armor could not stop us. You were helpless from the moment you entered this system. She paused. We chose mercy instead. We chose to show you that humanity is not your enemy. We have no desire for conquest. We have no interest in revenge. We simply want to exist, in peace, as equals among the stars. Her expression hardened slightly. But understand this. Our mercy is a choice, not a weakness. If you attack us again, we will defend ourselves. And next time, we may not be so gentle. The transmission ended. In the void, rescue ships began to arrive. Concordat vessels, sent to retrieve the disabled Zelthari fleet. They worked slowly, carefully, towing each powerless ship to safety. It would take weeks to rescue everyone. On his flagship, General Zarn sat in darkness. The emergency lights cast strange shadows across his face. His officers surrounded him, equally helpless, equally humiliated. What do we do now, General? One of them asked. Zarn did not answer. He stared at the blank view screen, thinking about what had happened, thinking about what he had witnessed. He had seen the impossible. A fleet outnumbered 240 to 1 had defeated his armada without suffering a single casualty. They had weapons that passed through matter. They had devices that could take control of any ship. They had speed and precision beyond anything he had ever imagined. And according to their ambassador, this was only a fraction of their true strength. For the first time in his life, General Zarn felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The news of the Battle of Kethoran spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species heard the story. Every world watched the recordings. The Zelthari Empire, the most feared military power in known space, had been defeated utterly, and they had been defeated by a species that most of the galaxy had never even heard of until a few weeks ago. Emperor Korthax received the news in his throne room. He listened in silence as his generals described the disaster. 12 million ships, disabled. His greatest warriors, humiliated. His empire, exposed as weak and vulnerable. When the report was finished, he sat very still for a long moment. Then he rose from his throne. Get out, he said. All of you. Leave me. His generals fled. They knew better than to argue with the emperor when he was in this mood. Korthax stood alone in his throne room. He walked to the great window that overlooked his capital city. Millions of his people lived there, going about their daily lives, unaware that their world had just changed forever. He had built his empire on strength, on fear, on the certainty that no one could stand against the Zelthari. Now that certainty was gone. A door opened behind him. He turned to see a figure entering the throne room. It was not one of his generals or ministers. It was a young Zelthari officer, one of the few who had survived the disaster at Kethoran. You should not be here, Korthax said. I ordered everyone to leave. I know, my emperor. The officer walked toward him. Her movements were calm, confident. But the other generals are too afraid to tell you what must be said. And what is that? That your leadership has brought us to ruin. That your arrogance has destroyed our fleet. That if you continue on this path, you will destroy our entire species. Korthax stared at her. You dare speak to me this way? I will have you executed for treason. No, you will not. The officer stopped a few meters away from him. Because you know I am right. The humans have shown us something today. They have shown us that there are forces in the galaxy more powerful than we are. And they have shown us that power alone is not enough. What do you suggest then? That we surrender? That we bow to these humans? I suggest that we learn from them. The officer's eyes were steady. They did not kill our people when they could have. They showed mercy when they did not need to. Perhaps there is wisdom in that. Perhaps we have been wrong about many things. Korthax turned back to the window. He was silent for a long time. Who are you? He finally asked. My name is Celtrix. I was a squadron commander at Kethoran. My ship was one of the first to be disabled. I spent 6 hours drifting in darkness, waiting to die. She paused. But death never came. The humans kept us alive. They did not have to, but they did. And that changed your mind about them? It made me think. For the first time in my life, I met an enemy who did not want to destroy us. They only wanted to be left alone. Is that so wrong? Korthax did not answer, but he did not call for guards either. He stood at the window, watching his city, thinking about everything that had happened. 3 days later, Emperor Korthax was removed from power. His own military turned against him, led by officers who had survived Kethoran. Celtrix became part of the new leadership council that took his place. The Zelthari Empire sent a message to the Galactic Concordat. They were willing to discuss peace. They were willing to accept humanity as members of the Concordat. The galaxy had changed forever. And it had changed without a single drop of blood being spilled. On the human flagship, Admiral Stone reviewed the reports from across the galaxy. The Zelthari had surrendered. The Concordat was accepting humanity's terms. Everything they had worked for was finally happening. Elena Chen sat beside him, looking tired but satisfied. We did it, she said. After 200 years, we finally did it. We did. Stone was quiet for a moment. But what happens if they learn the truth? The truth about what? About our fleet. About our capabilities. Stone looked at her. We used almost everything we had at Kethoran. If the Zelthari had sent more ships, or if another power had attacked at the same time, we would have been in serious trouble. Elena smiled. But they did not know that, and they never will. So our entire strategy is based on a bluff? Not a bluff, Admiral. A reputation. Elena turned to look out the viewport. The galaxy believes we have millions of ships hidden somewhere. They believe we have weapons that can destroy stars. They believe we are far more powerful than we actually are. And when they realize the truth, by then, we will have built more ships, developed more technologies, made more allies. She looked back at him. We have been preparing for 2 centuries, Admiral. We are not going to stop now. Stone nodded slowly. So we keep building. We keep growing. We keep preparing. Always, Elena said. Humans always prepare for the worst. It is what we do. It is what we have always done. She looked out at the stars, at the endless void that was now open to her people. The galaxy thought we were weak, she said quietly. They thought we were primitives. They were wrong, and they will never make that mistake again. Stone smiled. No, I do not think they will. Outside, the human fleet hung in the darkness, patient and watchful. They had won a great victory today, but they knew that it was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were many dangers yet to come, but humanity was ready for them. They had been ready for a very long time. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Kethoran. 1 year since the galaxy had learned the truth about humanity. 1 year since everything had changed. Ambassador Voreth San walked through the streets of New Geneva, the first human city to be built on the surface after the Great Emergence. The buildings rose around him, tall and elegant, made of materials that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Human children played in the parks. Human adults walked to their jobs, chatting with each other, laughing, living their lives. A year ago, these people had been living underground, hidden from the galaxy in secret cities beneath the earth. Now they walked freely under open skies, building a new world on the surface of their ancient home. Voreth still found it hard to believe. He had spent a century watching humanity through cameras and sensors, studying them from a distance. He had thought he understood them. He had been completely wrong. A human child ran past him, chasing a ball. The child stopped, looked up at Voreth with wide eyes, then smiled and waved before running off again. Voreth smiled back. Humans were not afraid of aliens anymore. They had no reason to be. He continued walking until he reached his destination, a small building at the edge of the city, overlooking a vast green valley. It was simple and elegant, built in a style that Voreth had learned to recognize as traditional human architecture. A sign above the door read, Office of the Ambassador. He entered. Elena Chen sat behind a desk, reviewing documents on a screen. She looked up when Vorith came in and smiled. Ambassador San. I was wondering when you would arrive. I apologize for my delay. Your city is very distracting. There is much to see. There is. Elena agreed. We have been building quickly. Too quickly, some say. But we have a lot of time to make up for. Vorith took a seat across from her. That is what I wanted to talk to you about. The Concordat has questions. They always do. What is it this time? They want to know about your technology, your phase-shifting ships, your control devices, your propulsion systems. You have shared some things with us, but there is much that remains hidden. Elena nodded. And there will remain hidden. For now. We have spent 2 centuries developing these technologies. We are not going to give them away overnight. The Concordat finds this concerning. I am sure they do. Elena leaned back in her chair. Let me ask you something, Ambassador. If your positions were reversed, would you share all your secrets with a civilization that had planned to erase your culture and control your development? Vorith was silent. He had no good answer to that question. We will share our knowledge, Elena continued. In time. When trust has been built. When we are confident that it will not be used against us. She smiled. Until then, we will remain careful. I hope you understand. I do understand, Vorith said. But not everyone in the Concordat is as patient as I am. I know. That is why we maintain our fleet. Elena's smile faded slightly. We do not want war, Ambassador. But we will never be vulnerable again. Our people spent 200 years in darkness, preparing for a threat that might never come. We will not waste that sacrifice. Vorith nodded slowly. He understood. He did not like it, but he understood. They talked for another hour, discussing trade agreements and diplomatic protocols, and the 100 other details that came with integrating a new species into the galactic community. When they were finished, Vorith rose to leave. At the door, he paused. There is one more thing, he said. Something personal. Elena looked at him with curiosity. Yes? I spent a century watching your people, studying them, trying to understand them. Vorith turned to face her. I thought I knew everything about humanity. I was wrong. You surprised me. You surprised everyone. That was the idea. Yes. But what surprises me most is not your technology or your fleet. It is something else. Vorith hesitated. Your mercy. Elena tilted her head. What do you mean? At Kethoran, 12 million Zelthari came to destroy you. You could have killed them all. You had every right to. They had tried to exterminate your species. They had attacked without provocation. By any reasonable standard, you would have been justified in wiping them out. He paused. But you did not. You disabled their ships and left their crews alive. You showed them mercy when they deserved none. Why? Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. Because we wanted to be better than them. Vorith waited for her to continue. For 2 centuries, we studied the galaxy. We learned about the species that fill it. We learned about their wars and their conquests and their cruelty. We saw empires built on blood. We saw species exterminated for refusing to submit. We saw a galaxy that ran on fear and violence. She stood up and walked to the window. We decided that we did not want to be part of that. We did not want to become the thing we hated. We could have built weapons of mass destruction. We could have developed viruses and poisons and planet killers. We had the knowledge. We had the capability. She turned to face him. But we asked ourselves, what kind of species do we want to be? What kind of future do we want to build? And we realized that if we met violence with violence, cruelty with cruelty, we would become just another empire, just another power that rules through fear. So you chose another way. We chose to show the galaxy that strength does not require cruelty, that power does not require destruction, that it is possible to defeat your enemies without becoming like them. Elena smiled sadly. Not everyone agreed with this choice. Some of our people wanted revenge. Some wanted to make the galaxy pay for the threat it posed to us. The debates were fierce, but you won those debates. We did. Because most humans understood the truth. If we built our future on hatred and revenge, we would never be free of the past. We would be prisoners of our own anger forever. Vorith looked at her with new eyes. He had studied humanity for a century, but he had never truly understood them until this moment. You are a remarkable species, he said. We are a species that has learned from its mistakes, Elena replied. We have done terrible things in our history, Ambassador. We have waged wars and committed atrocities and nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. But we have also learned. We have grown. We have tried to be better. She walked back to her desk. The galaxy expected us to be monsters. When we revealed ourselves, everyone assumed we would attack, that we would seek revenge for the centuries of surveillance and the threat of extinction. They expected violence because that is all they know. And instead, you offered peace. We offered a choice. We told the galaxy that it could be our enemy or our friend. We made it clear that we would defend ourselves if attacked, but that we preferred cooperation. Elena sat down. It is working, Ambassador. Slowly, but it is working. Voreth thought about this. She was right. In the year since the emergence, much had changed. The Kellery had become close allies of humanity. The Vorn Collective had opened trade relations. Even the Xeltari, humbled by their defeat, were beginning to change. Other species were watching. Other primitive worlds under concorded quarantine were hearing about humanity. They were learning that it was possible to resist, that it was possible to prepare, that they did not have to accept their fate passively. The Concordat was changing, whether it wanted to or not. There is something I need to tell you, Voreth said. Something that is not widely known yet. Elena looked at him with interest. The Kelari Federation has decided to form a formal alliance with humanity. Not just trade agreements or diplomatic relations. A full military and political alliance. We want to stand with you. Elena's eyes widened slightly. That is significant. It is. The Kelari have never formed such an alliance before. We have always been neutral, careful, uninvolved in galactic conflicts. Voreth smiled. But you have shown us that neutrality is not always possible. Sometimes, you have to choose a side. And you have chosen us. We have chosen hope, Voreth said. We have chosen to believe that the galaxy can be better than it is. You have given us that hope, Ambassador. For the first time in centuries, we believe that things can change. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she stood and extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting and agreement. Then let us build that future together, Ambassador San. Voreth took her hand. Her grip was warm and firm. Together, he agreed. That evening, Voreth attended a ceremony in New Geneva. It was a celebration of the first anniversary of the emergence, the day when humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy. Thousands of humans gathered in the central plaza, along with representatives from a dozen alien species. Lights filled the air, and music played, and laughter echoed through the streets. Voreth stood at the edge of the plaza, watching. A year ago, he had watched humans through cameras and sensors, always distant, always separate. Now he stood among them, one guest among many, welcome in a way he had never expected to be. A young human woman approached him. She was perhaps 30 years old by human standards, with dark hair and bright eyes. She carried 2 glasses of a bubbling human drink. You look lonely, she said. Would you like some company? Voreth accepted the glass. Thank you. I was just thinking. About what? About how much things have changed. Voreth looked out at the crowd. A year ago, your people were hidden underground. Now you celebrate in the open, with aliens as your guests. It is remarkable. The woman smiled. It is it not? I still have trouble believing it sometimes. I was born in one of the underground cities. I spent my whole life down there, never seeing the sun. I used to dream about what it would be like to walk on the surface. And now? Now I walk on the surface every day. I see the sun rise every morning. I feel the wind on my face. She laughed softly. It is better than I dreamed. So much better. Do you regret the years underground? The woman thought about this. No, I do not. Every child born in those cities knew why we were there. We knew about the galaxy. We knew about the threat. Our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents had made the choice to hide, to prepare, to wait. They gave up their lives in the sunlight so that we could have this. She gestured at the celebration around them. This is their gift to us. This freedom, this future. How can I regret that? Voreth looked at her with something like wonder. This was what he had never understood about humanity. Not their technology or their tactics. Their spirit. Their willingness to sacrifice for generations yet unborn. Their ability to endure hardship with hope instead of despair. Your people are extraordinary, he said. The woman laughed. We are just people, Ambassador. We have our faults and our failures like everyone else. But we try. We always try. She raised her glass. To the future, she said. Vorith raised his glass in return. To the future. They drank together, human and alien, under the stars of a galaxy that was slowly learning to change. Later that night, Vorith made his way to a quiet garden at the edge of the city. Ambassador Elena Chen was there, sitting on a bench, looking up at the sky. The celebration continued in the distance, but here it was peaceful. May I join you? Vorith asked. Elena nodded, and Vorith sat beside her. They were silent for a while, watching the stars. Then Elena spoke. A delegate from the Vorn Collective asked me something today. They wanted to understand humanity's philosophy, the belief that let us endure 200 years of hiding. What did you tell them? Elena smiled. I told them about something we call hope, not blind optimism, not wishful thinking. Real hope. The kind that sees the darkness clearly and chooses to believe in the light anyway. Vorith considered this. That is a difficult thing. It is. It is the hardest thing in the universe. Elena looked up at the stars. But it is also the most powerful. Hope is what kept us going when we were hiding underground. Hope is what gave us the strength to build our fleet. Hope is what made us choose mercy at Ketharon instead of revenge. And now? Now hope tells us that the galaxy can change. That species that have been enemies for millennia can become friends. That the cycle of fear and violence can be broken. She turned to face him. That is what we believe, Ambassador. That is what we fight for. Vorith was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. The galaxy watched your people for 200 years. We thought we understood you. We thought you were primitives, destined to destroy yourselves. We were so confident in our assessment that we never considered the possibility that we were wrong. He shook his head. We should have known better. We should have looked more closely. Because the truth about humanity was always there, in every piece of data we collected. Your wars, yes, your violence and your conflicts, but also your art, your music, your poetry, your dreams. He turned to face Elena. You are a species that looks at the universe and refuses to accept it as it is. You see the darkness and dream of light. You see the impossible and ask why not. You face extinction and build instead of destroy. Elena smiled. Is that a compliment, Ambassador? It is the truth, Vorith said. The simple truth that we should have seen from the beginning. They sat together in silence, watching the stars. Above them, the lights of ships passed overhead. Human ships and Kalari ships, traveling together. Allied vessels, patrolling the skies of Earth. The galaxy was changing. Slowly, painfully. But it was changing. And humanity was at the center of that change. Vorith did not know what the future would bring. There would be challenges ahead. Old enemies who refused to change. New threats from beyond the known galaxy. Mistakes and failures and setbacks. But there would also be progress. Growth. The slow building of trust between species that had once been strangers. The gradual creation of a galaxy where fear was not the only law. It would take time. It would take patience. It would take hope. But if there was one thing Vorith had learned about humanity, it was this. They never gave up. They endured. They persisted. They kept moving forward, no matter how long the night lasted, because they knew that the night always ended, and the dawn always came. He looked at Elena Chen, sitting beside him, watching the stars with quiet confidence. She was the ambassador of a species that had been born in darkness and had chosen to reach for the light. The galaxy had watched humanity for 200 years, waiting for them to reach the stars. They had never considered that humanity was waiting too. Now the wait was over. The new age had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.